Welcome to the People's Mortgage Company Fireside Chats with your host, Ron Durante.
Welcome everybody. We haven't had a fireside chat in a couple months and wanted to basically reintroduce this and kind of maybe change the format just a little bit going forward for this year. But being that this week is Volunteer Week of the Year, we feel like this is a perfect opportunity for us to bring in People's Mortgage Volunteer of the Year for 2021 from Nebraska, Tara Suckstorf. So we have Tara in here today, and basically we're going to go through not only her career, what she does, but obviously all the impact that she's had in her community and all the giving back that she's done throughout the years, and the great job that she's done volunteering. As everybody knows, that's a priority of People's Mortgage, and she does a phenomenal job year after year after year. So with that, welcome.
Thank you.
So how was your flight in?
Late.
Yeah,
Yes.
a little long.
Yes, a little long.
A little long for you.
Had a little high school reminiscent, of course. Nebraska's a big, giant, small town.
Town,
So
yeah.
I had a guy I went to high school with.
You knew you were going to run into somebody.
Yeah.
So just so everybody knows, for those that do not know Tara, I'm going to be doing my best to keep her on one story at a time, because Tara has the perfect knack of jumping from one story to another, and then I'm always having to redirect her to come back and finish the one. So if we don't finish a story, please put it in the chat so that she can respond at the end of this, because I got a feeling there might be one or two that we don't get here. So Tara, obviously you started with People's in February of 2018.
Yes.
And like I said earlier, and I want you to kind of give us a little bit of background on you, but the one thing that I've always been impressed with you since the day you started with People's is not only what you do in business and what you do as representing People's Mortgage and the family of People's Mortgage, but the huge impact that you have on your community. I've gone out there and I've watched you do your volunteering, and I've been involved with it, and to me that's amazing. So if you don't mind, just kind of give everybody a little bit of background of where you came from before you came to People's, and then also kind of touch on what really got you into volunteering and giving back.
Well, I have 4 boys, and so
Great boys.
and the most exciting news with that is Suckstorf gets to carry on. So there's that.
4 more times.
Yes, it's a good thing I'm in sales, because I'm gonna have to pitch that it's just a name. Take it, it's fine. But I think the biggest part for me is, that's just how I was brought up, caring about other people and things like that. But then when you have your own children and you do not want them to be entitled, spoiled brats, you're like, how can I get them involved too? And so I started trying to look at what I could do to incorporate the volunteering with them as well.
That's awesome.
Literally the only thing I could ever think of was the ringing of the bell once a year, and we live in Nebraska, so it's cold. And so I just could hear a lot of complaints with that, and I also don't like the cold.
Right.
So I didn't want to stand out and ring the bell. But for us, the biggest kind of thing, as that we do is for Alex's Lemonade Stand. And for those of you who don't know, you're going to think your children are just slackers. Because if you look up the backstory of Alex, who was a 4-year-old little girl who had cancer, she was getting a bone marrow transplant, and she decided to have a lemonade stand, and she held it in her front yard. Her parents assumed she wanted a toy, and she said, no, I want to give the doctors money to get better medicine for my friends that have cancer.
Oh, wow.
4.
Wow.
So then it's kind of like, okay, we got to get involved with this. But it was friends of ours in Kansas City whose son had leukemia. He's doing great now. It's been like 10 years. So he's doing very well. But every year they had Midwest Lemonade Days. So literally have lemonade stands inside all of these stores.
Right.
And so I'd always see it on Facebook, and I would always donate online. And I think it was like 2014 or 15. I wanted to take the boys there and just kind of talk about it and, talk about things that other people are going through. And there was no stand in Nebraska. So I had messaged my friend, and I was like, I can't believe it's Midwest Lemonade Days, and Nebraska is all about, caring and giving back and whatever. And I was just surprised there was nothing. And she said, well, then you guys should do it. I was like, crap. How do you say no to that?
So you can make a suggestion, right? You volunteer yourself.
So, she has 5 boys. So it's not like I could say, well, I don't have time for that. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And it was maybe a little bit more of an undertaking than I had anticipated. In Kansas City, there's a coordinator and they do everything.
Right.
So I just started making phone calls and got shot down from several people like, no, you can't,
Did you really?
I got very obviously into the idea and kind of motivated by a 4-year-old who did.
About it.
Yeah. And so the chain of stores in Kansas City that did it, it's in 32 stores. They've been doing it for years. And so I'm like, oh, well, they'll do it in Lincoln. It'll just be super simple. Yeah, we don't have time for that. I was like, but I'm literally doing everything. I just need a space.
Right.
And I reached out to, somebody else, and they were like, oh yeah, it's been super accommodating. So we've been doing it there every year. And so then, we get Auntie Anne's to donate the lemonade. And my kids are really mad when we have leftover lemonade. I think the most rewarding thing that first year was, they would have been probably like 12, 10, 8, and 3.
Right.
So the 3-year-old was very limited with his work, but the other ones, the whole time, it's 2 days for like 8 hours, and they are out there asking, and I'm like, oh, they're going to start wanting to be paid for this, this money's going through their hands, and they were so excited, and as long as you gave them lemonade and a lunch break,
right,
they're fine.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was impressed because, I always found that doing volunteer work and involving your kids makes it even more passionate for you and your family to give back. And I went out to the lemonade stand in 2019 before COVID. And to talk about and to see her kids in action is amazing. Like literally all 4 of them, the boys are sitting there. Anybody that walks by, they better like try to make no eye contact with these kids at all because they are going to almost tackle them to say, hey, you need to like donate, here's some money. And, I mean, they were getting donations without taking lemonade, and I think there's popcorn too, wasn't there, that they're heading out? But it was great to see the involvement of the kids and how you've involved it. And they're as excited about what they raise and everything else. So what do you guys, on a given year, what are you guys averaging as far as what are you raising for the lemonade stand? I mean, around.
It's a sore subject. I get very offended when people really just give us $1. I mean, obviously but I'm like,
hey, it's
also,
$1 more than what you had before.
It's $1 more than what we had before, but this Auntie Anne's lemonade is $4 at the mall, and I know you're buying it there. But I am able to get everything donated. So I've kind of had my core people, and every year I'm like, hey, it's time. You had $800 for the shirts or whatever. And so fortunately, everything we raise, we do give back, or we are able to donate. And so, for the 5 years that we've had, we've raised like $15,300.
That's awesome. That's great.
But I'm always like, come on. The problem is I know what they raise in Kansas City.
Right.
My friend, when there's 32 other stands in the same town, and it's a big town, they'll raise like $15,000 in a year.
Right.
So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So,
but you guys are the only ones really doing this in Nebraska, right? So it hasn't expanded out to other areas of Nebraska or into Omaha yet either. Has it?
No. We added a second store like 3 years ago.
Okay.
So our family does the one stand, and then we staff the other one.
Right.
And so my husband and the boys build the stands. I do the artwork.
Great. Yeah.
He doesn't mess around. You want to stand, it's going to be a stand.
It's true lemonade stand.
But then this year, fortunately, because it's Nebraska and it's, the top story on the news is usually football or the weather.
Right.
So one of the news stations is especially just loves it, and the anchor's been there forever. And so I reached out to him this year, and my brain is always going, okay, like what else can we do? And so next month because we're gonna do the stand in July, and
right.
Next month we're gonna, or early June, I'm gonna do like a challenge. So they're gonna run a story. We'll do like the midday news, and then they're gonna record something to run at night.
That's awesome.
But we're gonna have the kids that do the stands in their front yard, just because they do them anyway.
Right.
Have them save their money, and then the first day of the stand, I'll bring to us, and whoever has like the top 3, I'm trying to get some parties,
Right.
trampoline parks and stuff like that set
Oh,
up
that's
parties.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so
really
just to try to get
Right.
get the
Some more
community
involvement,
involved.
more, and expand on it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, obviously, you know, since you've been at People's, you've always been, because we really try to encourage philanthropy, which somebody's asking about that. What is that?
Volunteering.
So
It's not a well-known word.
yeah, somebody didn't know what philanthropy was. But anyways, so knowing that since you've been here, you have always been one of the top contributors to our volunteering efforts as a company. How did you do that still during pandemic? I mean, during COVID. I mean, that whole time, because obviously you're out and trying to do this, you know, face to face, and then obviously you had a big change when 2020 happened. How did that change how you guys did your fundraising and how it impacted you?
So ironically, Brittany King. I apologize. Can you edit that?
No, this is live.
Okay,
Sorry.
Perfect. I told you I shouldn't go live. Brittany and I, at the beginning of the year, had said, okay, we're gonna challenge ourselves, but then try to obviously challenge other people 1 hour a week. And so we had like a book and ideas and all the things we could do, and 2 months in, we were shut down with COVID, and so it was trying to get creative, like giving blood and telling other people to give blood, and for the lemonade stand, we did try to do something online. I mean, it was definitely a challenge, just because of that change.
But you guys got creative, because I went out for the blood drive too.
Yes.
When it switched because of COVID, you had the blood drive, and we went out for that too. But it was great to see you change your mind shift, obviously, and still try to do and make the impact on the community that you have for the last 10 years. So that's really cool that you did that. Understanding that obviously there's only so much time in the day, and you're a branch manager, you're a loan officer, you're a mother to 4. How do you find time, and how do you make the time to still be able to make an impact on the community?
You have to give up sleep. I mean, honestly, just because it's like, it's sort of like I'm deciding, that this is my goal this year. You just kind of figure out how you're going to do it. Obviously, incorporating my kids into it helps, because I'm still not neglecting them. I have to neglect them when I'm working, but if I'm volunteering, I can make them come with me.
Exactly.
I think that's the biggest thing. It's just, if I commit to doing it, you just figure out the time. I usually, honestly, sit on the couch at 11 o'clock, and now I'm going to work on that. Now I'm going to work on the lemonade stand and stuff, because it's a big, I'm the one, if there's a physical building need, my husband and boys will do it, but otherwise, other than the stand, I'm designing the shirts, ordering the shirts, getting with all of these people. So it's a lot of time, but it's really worth it.
That's cool.
I mean, we're kind of exhausted when it's over, but it's
right. But your oldest is graduating, so
everyone,
junior
time
high,
in the chat,
he's graduating junior
for
high, not
everybody
high
to be
school.
shocked that I could possibly. He is. Oh, and yes, we're expanding. I talked to. Sorry, go with your
You're
question.
expanding? No, wait. You said
We're expanding our family.
Oh, that's what I thought you were going. I was going to
There
go,
needs to be more Suckstorfs in this world. No, I probably didn't even tell you this, but he's going to school. He's going to play football, and at the college, when we were talking to, he's trying to figure out what his major is and everything, and we were talking to the business administration guy.
Yeah.
He was saying that they're really into, they make them do something, and I was like, oh my gosh, guess what? We have this. You can borrow our stands, and he was like, I don't care if this kid comes here or not. I want this to be. So we're gonna have.
So you already threw that out. You already pitched that actually to the school. Nice.
I did, yeah, and
there you go.
he's all so now it's gonna be in. Crete is about 45 minutes from Lincoln, and that's where. So
awesome.
Now they're gonna have a different time. So yeah, sorry.
That's really cool.
Your question was, sir.
So obviously this is an organization that you've been passionate about for a long time, but I also know that there's other organizations.
Yes.
What makes you really impactful in making your decision on which organization? I mean, it's hard to. We all kind of try to dibble dabble here and there, but obviously this one was one that was very passionate to you. What really put you to that point to make that this is your primary, even though you still do a lot of other charity stuff as well?
I think number one is, what are they giving back? Their overhead, all the things, I think it's very important, even if you're spending time or money on an organization, to check what they're actually giving back.
Absolutely.
Just side note, Alex's Lemonade Stand only uses 18% for their overhead. You know, and I'll have people like at the stand like, well, I just gave to Susan G. Komen. Have you been to her website? It's like 52%. It's crazy.
Right.
So I think you know, probably as a mom, when we started young kids, our kids do have some health problems, but you would think we would do those organizations, but I want them to kind of go outside of themselves to do these things, you know. But thinking of I think just something that I, as a mom, would be like, that would be horrible to not do. So one of the other ones that kind of grabbed me was Box of Balloons. And it is literally a birthday party in a box.
Yeah.
And so Lindsay and I are going to work on this. We've had some ideas of how to get like agents involved too, but you're supposed to get with social workers, the People's City Mission, things like that, where people know of children under the age of 12 that are having a birthday, whose families can't afford a party.
Oh.
And so, I mean, it's about $120 a box, but you literally do 12 cupcakes, the party favors, all the things,
Oh,
and then you
really
find
cool.
out information about the child
Right.
and buy them a present. But then we don't ever meet them or anything, we give the box to the person who reached out about it,
Right.
and then they give it to the family, and then the child thinks it's coming from their parents.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
so, I mean, so I read about this and I'm like, to think
Right.
about not being able to give your kid a birthday and
Absolutely.
having them feel special, and how, like, okay, do I give them a birthday party or do I feed them, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's another
really
one.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really, we need to make sure that we try to roll that out, because that'd be really cool to do as a company.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly.
just stuff boxes. So
Yeah.
Lindsay and I had talked about, like, okay, how can we get agents involved in it too? Because I'll be like, oh, hey, you know, one of the things Brittany and I were doing was the food bank,
Right.
you know, and we'd go where people kind of come and shop, and it's, you know, it's very humbling, and obviously, you know, having kids that are I grew up with a single mom, and you know, we didn't have a lot, and so then you want to give your kids everything, but I don't want them to be entitled either.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, look at we could be here tomorrow. Rates are up, kids. Enjoy this.
Wow.
Just kidding. But you know, you
Kidding,
just
not
want to
kidding.
make sure that, you know, that they kind of know that they're fortunate,
Right.
and you know.
Well, and I think that's the best thing about volunteering is number one, you are humbled. Number two, you really feel blessed with what you've been given or provided, and wanting to give back makes you feel even better.
Right.
And obviously, knowing you,
Mm-hmm.
you do not do charity to get recognition. You don't do charity to grow your business. But how does your impacting the community help you with your business, or help you in the community from the visibility side of it?
I think one of the biggest things is I just happen to be out there, and like with the news, every single year we've done it, they always stop by. You know, I reach out. It's in the paper. It's in, you know, on the news. My kids are on the news. They usually talk to me. So I'm sort of getting free, like literally free press.
advertising.
And when your name is Suckstorf,
People don't forget it.
so I mean, it just sort of, you know, happens, and then I'm out there, and of course on our stand I always have, like, at the front of the stand I put all of our volunteers, and I try to minimize it so that it's like, okay, these 5 people, and it's not a ton of people, and it's on our shirts, and so I mean, it just sort of happens where, you know, we're getting this extra recognition, and I'm not spending a dime other than whatever I'm spending on the fundraiser. So definitely, but last year, for whatever reason, the stand is set up at the other location. There's drinks, everything's done for you, just have to show up for 2 hours. And I had a heck of a time getting people to do it. And so we go to Nebraska Realty meetings every week. So I'm like, come on, you guys, you know, you can stand there for 2 hours. And so now I'm getting agents involved.
Right.
And so then they get to, maybe don't work with me or don't know me, but then they're like, okay, wow, she's not a horrible person. Let me, you know.
You're giving back. You're making a difference. And you've done good even like with those blood drives and stuff, obviously involving your agents that you work with. And I think that's important too, because again, you're not doing it for business purposes, but you're also making relationships.
Yeah.
Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a business relationship, those are relationships that you're actually growing while you're making a difference in your community, which is, you know, great. So one of the biggest struggles that we have I wouldn't even say a struggle, but so for us as a company, we like to promote, and we like to, well, I call it bragging about what our company does for impacting the communities that we all make a living in. But we also struggle sometimes getting loan officers and employees and everybody in the company to tell us all the volunteering they're doing because they feel like it's bragging. And you're very humble. You don't do it because you want the recognition. But what are some better ways that we can get more people to talk about what they're doing as individuals? Because again, a lot of people, even myself, like that's not something that I just sit there and throw out there all the time because you feel like you're bragging.
Yeah.
So
sure.
what are some ideas? Do you have any ideas or thoughts of how we can encourage people to come forward and show us what they're doing so we can tell, the communities, here's what we're doing. That's what we're proud of, is recognizing everything.
I think, because I struggle with, why are you going to Arizona?
I know.
I don't even like to say volunteer of the year because it just feels like I don't know, it's braggy, right?
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to. But I got a free trip, so I'm just kidding. I did. I shouldn't have said. I think that I had to challenge myself. I don't like to talk about a lot of things, oddly.
Yeah, right.
On paper, out to the world.
She's very quiet. She
Yeah.
doesn't like to tell a lot of stories.
But like when I'm going to donate blood, I'm like, okay, just make a post about it. Tell people that I'm doing it because everybody should do it. When I was 33, needed 4 units to keep me alive. Like I never would have anticipated. I'm a healthy person.
Right.
I wouldn't have thought, which was obviously yesterday, when I was 33. But I'm like, hey, I'm going to give blood. You should too. There's a shortage. We're in COVID. Just I think telling other people this is what I'm doing today. Does anybody want to go with me? That's
Right.
kind of what I started doing is, hey, I'm going at noon in a week. Making it more like people take
Like you're
pictures
inviting them.
I'm inviting them. People
Right.
take pictures of their lunch.
Right.
So instead of taking a picture, you take a picture and be like, hey, today I'm stuffing boxes for whatever we're doing here today. So
That's
maybe
great.
just sharing what you're doing, like
Right.
this is what I'm doing today. I'm at my kid's concert. I'm stuffing boxes.
Right.
Because a lot of people share that kind of stuff online. So I think just making it like less threatening, not about yourself, but hey, this was really fun.
Right.
I enjoyed, or I'm honored to be able to give back to these people. If you maybe turn around and don't make it about yourself.
That it doesn't come
Yeah,
across as
doesn't.
bragging.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think when you see those things in the way that it's positioned, I think that's very good. And I think that's actually a good idea.
And maybe just sharing, because
Right.
like sharing what it's about. Because I'm like, how do you not know about Alex's lemonade stand or box of balloons? I know is not. People are like, what is that?
Right.
When you hear it, you're like, oh my gosh,
Oh, yeah.
like I want to know that and I want to get involved
Right.
with that. So if you're just sort of informing people, like, hey, this is something I've gotten passionate about. That's not bragging.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Absolutely.
So
So it
I
doesn't
think
come
maybe
across as the bragging.
more
Absolutely.
informative.
I agree. I totally agree. That's awesome. Is there any questions so far, Lindsay? Or Lindsay?
Somebody had about how do you use social media. You touched on it a little bit. But.
Not as well as I should. More just like, hey, like I try to remind myself, okay, this is what I'm doing right now, so I'm going to tell people. And I don't it's weird if you know me because I will pretty much tell you anything, more than you even asked for.
That is true.
Ask Andy. Anyway, but I have to remind myself that, like, if it's, I feel like when I get really passionate about it, it's almost personal. So
Right.
now I'm sharing personal stuff. I just like to share maybe not as personal stuff. But like when Brittany and I were doing the 1 week thing, even though it's uncomfortable for me, we were going, okay, like we committed to this, so we're going to prove to you that we're doing it.
Right.
And so we would just take a picture and be like, hey, today we're here. Like 1 week we couldn't figure out what to do, so we went to Goodwill, and it was cold because we live in Nebraska.
Right.
And so we bought a bunch of like blankets and donated them,
Yeah, that's cool.
So just sort of sharing like what you're doing, and I need to be better about that. So just literally, hey, here's what we're doing. Please get involved. The lemonade stand I probably use the most, and it's just more like informative, inviting people, things like
Well,
that.
and that's a great experience. Like I say, because you're face to face with people, and then you get to tell the story of Alex's lemonade stand, and everything else. So it's a really cool impact that you guys are making. It's neat, and the interaction that you have with the people coming in the store. Like I said, I was there for 4 hours with you one day, and it was really cool just to see the setup. Your kids' involvement is amazing. Obviously, that's a testament to the parents' involvement and the commitment you have to giving back. So I commend you for that, because the kids are going to pass that down to their kids eventually as well. So, which is really cool. So again, we can't thank you enough for all that you do for your communities, and for the company. Like we said, this has always been a big, important factor for us, making an impact in the communities that we make a living in. It's not just about making a living; it's about making a difference. And you have done a phenomenal job with that. And we can all only strive to be half as good as you, but I think it's a target that we all should be striving for. So. Anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Make a plug.
What's that?
You can make a plug real quick.
No. Cooper.
Yep.
My youngest. He's
He's a lot of Tara.
I know he's a lot of. I don't even know. He's very active. He was God's way of saying shut it down. He's very sweet and lovable. But you've heard a lot of Cooper stories.
Oh,
and he's just mischievous and stuff like that. But last week in his backpack, I knew I was coming to do this and everything, and I'm like, what do I want to talk about, and that kind of thing. And in his backpack was a story, and those of you who have kids know they always have to come up with stories. And, I know when I'm telling them, just do your homework, they're like, I don't have anything interesting to say. So apparently he made up a story. It's 2 sentences, it's very short. He said, I went to the bank to deposit some money, but then there was a homeless kid, so I gave him my money. And then he asked me if I could be his son, so I said yes. Or he could be my son, so I said yes. And I was like, buddy, I read your story. It was really nice that you gave the homeless kid some money. And he goes, it was just a story. And I had no idea. I thought you did go to the bank at 9 and, deposit money and adopt a child. But he said, I can't take other people's kids yet because I'm not an adult. We're going to circle back to that later. Can actually steal people's kids. But, that was sort of told me that, this kid, he's a lot. You hear Cooper stories. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do and teach them, like, he still has a big heart. And he does, think about other people. And I'll have to show you the picture because it's the bank, it's the teller, it's Cooper and the kid with the dollar bill. And then there's a tent in the corner that's for the homeless kid. And I was like, oh my gosh. So, anyway.
If you ever get a chance to get to listen to more Cooper stories, I will tell you they are
that could be that's like 2 hours.
And she loves to tell me the stories about him kind of being a hellion because she heard stories about me being kind of a hellion when I was a kid, so she thinks I can relate to that for some reason. But they are some great stories if you ever get to hear Cooper stories. I love the one where he was in his upstairs room and the window was open and he had to scream and he was just sitting there, help me. Help me! as people were walking by the house, not knowing that he wasn't really even locked into his room. He was just, help me! Kid's crazy.
Another one I was just reminded of is he had a black eye and he was like 4. And he was just always moving and jumping, so he had a lot of black eyes. But the preschool teacher said, what happened? And he said, my grandma hit me with her car. I said, not what happened. And I was like, you can't say those things. The police will come.
He's a funny kid. Well, thank you all. Is there another question?
A very, very important question in the chat.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay. She's asking how tall you were.
Oh, 5'10".
Why? Because she's taller than me?
Even with flats. Was I taller than you?
She's not taller than me.
You have bigger heels on than I do.
I don't. They're tennis shoes. Good try, though. Hey, thank you guys for all being here. And again, we are celebrating the fact that Tara was obviously the Volunteer of the Year for 2021. And we're challenging everybody else to make sure that this is a year that everyone gets back into volunteering. I know that 2020 was crazy and weird. 21, everybody was still kind of used to it. So everybody get back. And speaking of that, because it's Volunteer Week, we are having a challenge at 3 o'clock today where we are filling bags for the homeless. And it's from 3 to 5, and it's a challenge for the executives. So basically what that means is the executive team is going to be up here. You guys can join any team that you want, and whoever is the last one to fill all of their bags gets a pie in the face. So I'm also going to challenge you all to get up here and be on anybody's team except for Sean Morris's, because he's the one that's going to hate having the pie in the face the most. So we want to make sure that as long as you're not on Sean Morris's team, everybody will be invited to happy hour, and we will celebrate the fact that Sean will be getting a pie in his face. So if you be here at 3 o'clock, be here at 3 o'clock to help volunteer and to donate and to give back for the homeless down in Tempe. Thank you guys again, and again, thank you for all you do for the company. Thank you for continuing to make a difference in your communities. Love you all. See you guys next month. Bye.